the Scholarship Financial Aid presentation. Again, my name is Megan Meyerson. I'm a college access assistant here at the College Depot. We have a fun-filled hour-and-a-half presentation for you where you're going to learn about going to college and how can you afford it, all about scholarships and financial aid. We ask that if you are interested in asking questions that you put in the chat, and we to all panelists or all participants, and we will go ahead and answer those questions. We'll go ahead and let Diana take it away, Diana.
Thank you. Welcome back, those of you who were in the last Essay Essentials session. Yes, I am a jack of all trades at College Depot. Technically, I am the financial aid manager at the Depot, so my specialty is in helping you understand that if you're going to go to college, how you're going to afford it. This is a highly technical session compared to the last one. On Wednesday, I had a ton of questions after every slide, and so I probably will stop and ask Megan to read the questions as I go along. This is, again, a more technical topic, and that's why we've devoted an hour and a half to it. We hope you'll stay with us today. So without further ado, let's get started, Megan. If you want me to help you make college affordable, I'm really going to tell you about 3 different types of financial aid. The first one is my specialty, and that is federal student aid. And that is the financial assistance that's offered by the federal government. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Institutional aid, which is the money that colleges and universities give you in the form of scholarships to entice you to attend their institution because they want you. And then finally, we will talk about external scholarships, which really goes back to what we covered in Essay Essentials, how you go about finding those scholarships and responding to essays about them. We're going to spend just this moment talking about other private aid options because I want to acknowledge that you may look at the first 3 and not qualify for enough money in all 3 of them. So some students will pay cash because their families have saved. Good for you if that's the case of your family. Some families will take out second mortgages on or home equity loans to afford tuition. And then finally, some students will even pay their tuition charges on a credit card, the least appealing of all the options. But I do have to mention to you that there are lots of ways to pay for college. We just try to focus with you on the Depot on the primary 3 ways. So let's talk about federal aid for a few moments. Federal student aid is really pretty simple. It doesn't look that way when you look at the websites for federal financial aid, but there are really 3 types of aid. They are either grants, like the Pell Grant that you've probably heard of that doesn't have to be repaid as long as you maintain in good standing at the school. So grants are the best form of financial aid according to students because they don't have to pay them back. It's free money from the government. Secondly, everything everyone hates, student loans. I know you've read a lot about them, you've heard about them. They are a form of federal financial aid. So I always have to correct students when they tell me they didn't get any money from the government, they just got a student loan. The chances are the loan you got was made by the federal government through the federal student loan programs. And then finally, work study, which is just as the name implies. It's an opportunity for you to get a job arranged by campus, either on campus or at an off-campus agency like YMCA, in which the school helps you to find employment and the federal government pays part of your wages so the school does not have to pay all of them. So you can imagine colleges and universities love to hire federal work study students because out of a $15 wage, for instance, they only have to pay of it. So that is why this is such a popular program. Grants are considered gift aid, meaning they are gifted to you free. You don't owe anybody any money back for them. Loans and work study are considered self-help aid, and that means you're helping yourself to afford your college tuition. So next, let's talk about eligibility. There are some very basic eligibility requirements in order for you to apply for federal student aid. And the first one is one of the more heartbreaking ones for many of us, and that's you must be a US citizen or permanent resident. So if you are a DACA student or you know anyone who is a DACA student, unfortunately at this time, currently, they are not eligible for federal financial aid in the form of grants, loans, or work-study jobs. There are still types of financial aid available to them, institutional aid, scholarships. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But if you are a DACA student or you know one who needs some more help with how to navigate the college affording process, we can help you with that. You must have a valid SSN. Now, DACA students do in fact have a valid SSN, but they are not US citizens or permanent residents, so the two have to go together. You have to have a high school diploma or a GED. So if you're planning on jumping ahead after 10th grade and say, I'm done with this high school thing, I just want to go to college, you won't be able to do that because most colleges will not admit you, and you definitely would not qualify for any assistance to go there financially. You have to be attending an eligible degree or certificate program at an eligible school. Almost every school in America, whether it's for dog grooming, nail technician, medical doctor, chemical engineer, everything in between is an eligible school. Now, eligible programs are also extraordinarily plentiful, and there really are only a couple of very short-term programs, like bartending school is only 3 weeks. You can't get federal aid for that just because it's a short program, not because the federal government doesn't think we need bartenders. If you are a male, you must register for selective service. That is a very easy thing to do on your FAFSA. All males age 18 to 26 are expected to register for the draft, although we currently and have not had one for 50 years. You may have grandparents that were registered for the draft back in the 60s. And if that is the case and you are male, you are registering for the armed services roles. The chances are you will not be called to serve because we have enough volunteers, thank goodness. But the fact is, this is a requirement for men, not a requirement if you're female. You can still serve in the military, but you don't have to automatically be signed up. And if you wonder how you get signed up, it's really pretty easy. If you're going to be 18 years old in the first year of college, and most of you will be, you want to sign up on an application we're going to talk about in a moment called the FAFSA. The FAFSA gives you a really easy, sign me up for the draft, and you must answer yes to that question in order to be eligible. And then finally, you have to make satisfactory academic progress while you're in college or the career school, whether you're going to be a cosmetologist or you're going to be an attorney. Satisfactory progress doesn't mean you get straight A's. You don't have to have a 4.0 average, but you must maintain at least a minimum 2.0 cumulative average. That's pretty normal. And you must progress each semester toward your degree. So you can't fail every course you take or withdraw from every other one. That's the only requirement, because the federal government will not continue throwing good money after bad if you are not progressing toward your eventual goal. Okay, this is where questions began last time. So I am going to stop after each slide and ask Megan if she has any questions. But before I start, Megan, are there any yet? No, okay, thank you. What do you need to know about federal student aid? The first one is the little bubble here that says FAFSA. It's really not that difficult. It really isn't, but if you look at it, it's going to seem that way upon first glance. So I am here to tell you that 50% of what we do at College Depot is FAFSA completion, and we are more than happy to help you with that when you get ready to do your form. We help people all the way from start to finish. We answer specific questions. We have group activities. We're still working out how we're going to be doing those this fall because of the uncertainty of the library opening, but rest assured we will have something for you. What is the FAFSA? I'm sure most of you have heard of it. You've heard talk about it in the media, at your high school. There are probably posters all over the place. It stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And you will find it residing on a government website that has more financial aid information than even I like to read. And that's called studentaid.gov. So if you go into studentaid.gov and you say you want to apply for financial aid, it will take you directly to the FAFSA form. The applicable thing about the name is it is free. So there are a lot of agencies out there right now that are advertising. We will help you complete the form. Just give us $100 or $600. Don't do that. It's free. If you need help, go to your high school, come to College Depot. There are plenty of events to help you get it done on a timely basis. You have to do the FAFSA form every year you're in college. So it begins to be a pain in your side from your freshman year all the way to the end of the line. So for instance, my daughter, who is an attorney, who went through 7 straight years of school, completed her FAFSA 7 times. And well, more appropriately, her mother completed it 7 times. The FAFSA is available in October of 2020. So this coming October for the fall 2021 enrollment period. So I am speaking to all of you rising seniors right now. If you are not going to go to school until fall of 2021, your FAFSA is not available to you until October 1st. If you are not going to be graduating in 2021, then your FAFSA will be even later than that. So there is no point in doing a FAFSA for an upcoming year that you will be in high school. It needs to be for the upcoming year you will be in college. And the FAFSA that opens in October of 2020 is going to be based on your family's 2019 federal income tax information, which hopefully has been filed for sure by October of 2020. And that is information for the parent or parents and for the student if the student worked. Before I go on and talk about FSA IDs, any questions about what I've covered so far on this slide?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Casey's asking, what if we are sure we'll get federal aid? This is going to take off.
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. It seems like we have a little audio issue going on with Megan. So I'll take over. My name is Chris. I'm the assistant director.
Thank you. I can hear you much better, Chris.
Okay, cool. Let me know if that changes. But we have a question from KC. He says, what if we are sure that we will not get federal aid based on income? As I have heard, it is for families earning less than 40K. Do we need to fill out for federal aid?
Yes, short answer. And I will back that up. Yeah. 40,000 is not a figure that you will or will not get federal aid. It tends to be families under 40,000 get the maximum federal aid, but I know families who've made closer to 100,000, but they have a large amount of people in the family and they have 1 or 2 or 3 children going to college, and they definitely get federal aid. It's also important to know that student loans, as I said, are a form of federal aid. So you can't even take out a federal student loan unless you fill out a FAFSA. So my best advice is the form is pretty simple to do. Most colleges and universities are going to require it no matter how much you make, because they won't even release merit aid unless they think you at least tried to get federal aid. That doesn't mean you have to be eligible for it, but it's very difficult for them to award you anything if you simply say, I know I'm not eligible, I'm not going to do it. So my advice is in 100% of the cases, whether you think you're eligible or not, according to federal criteria, you may be. And we're going to talk about how that works in a minute. So yes, fill it out. Any other questions?
Thank you. Asta, now it's doing it for me. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, so Asta asks, to complete the FAFSA, can you use sources like MOS or MOS?
What's MOS? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. I looked it up also, and it seems like what I found is a smart tool that submits financial aid applications for you. So you only have to enter your information once, but honestly, I'm not sure what it is.
I'm not familiar with it, and I would be cautious about it because most people don't do this for free unless they're the federal government or the College Depot. So MOS is probably going to tell you, we'll fill out everything for you for only $300. You should save that money to buy a page in a book.
Okay, great
Any
answer.
other questions?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I have a lot of feelings about people who charge for this being done. It shouldn't be that way. And they probably can't save you any money, even if they tell you that they can, but they get rich this way. So, all right, let's talk about what you can do right now. If you can't fill out the FAFSA until October 2020 or even later, there is something you could do right now. You as a student and your parent can ask to be registered for an FSA user ID and password. That is how you access all government applications for federal educational aid. The FSA ID is a pretty easy process. You can access it on studentaid.gov, and I recommend that you look at it at least. It takes just a few minutes to create one. Often we help students create the FSA ID and apply for the FAFSA at the same sitting. But if you can have your ID and your password, which is basically your electronic signature, done before you come in to do your FAFSA, you save yourself and everyone else a lot of time. My only caution with doing it right now is if you're going to sign up for the ID and the password, which is basically your email address and creating your own password, remember what you did so you don't have to reset it. I know that when I don't use these things for 3 or 4 months, I forget everything. And you would be surprised at the number of people who don't even remember the email address they signed up for under the FSA ID. But if you have that done a little bit in advance, that's a great tool you can do right now. And I know I have a lot of students who want to work right away. This is something they can do towards their FAFSA. Chris, are you there?
Yes, sorry. So Casey asks, is it the same form filled out by both the student and parent?
Yes. If you are a certain category of student, the form is expected to include information on your parents. And when I say category of student, typically anyone under 24 years old, a student who is unmarried, a student who does not have children of his or her own, a student who is not a veteran of the armed services, a student who is not homeless. Those are the major criteria, or a student who does not have a legal guardian or is an orphan. So if you have parents, you have contact with them and you're under the age of 24, unless you're married or you have kids of your own or you just got out of the service, the chances are good your parents' information will have to appear, not want to appear, have to on the FAFSA.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. That is all the questions.
Okay, we can proceed. There are key questions on the form, and going back to the question of if you make under 40,000, that's the only way you're eligible. It's a lot more complicated than that. There really is not a table I can give you that says this is absolute, because the FAFSA is going to ask you questions and take into account several things. The first one is the size of your household. You, your parents, your siblings, anyone else who lives with you guys that they're supporting, could be an aunt, could be a niece, could be a grandma, could be your best friend who moved in 4 years ago and never left. As long as your parents are supporting those people, they are part of the household. So obviously, the larger your household size, the less far your money goes and the more you're going to need. So that's why a family size of 10 might make $100,000 and still qualify for aid, when a family size of 2 definitely would not qualify for grant assistance. And that's all I'll say about that. The more the merrier, okay? The number in college also influences the dollar amount of financial aid you receive. So if you are one of triplets, your family just hit the financial aid jackpot. That means 3 people in college going to cost more, right? Therefore, each of those 3 people will get more federal aid. If you have an older or younger sibling who's also in college at the same time as you, they don't have to be in the same grade level as you, but they're going to school. And if they are, then they count. It does not include parents, however. So for those of us parents who are in college ourselves, we have to ask for special consideration by the financial aid office. We can't automatically count ourselves on the FAFSA. It's a rule. I won't go into explaining why, but it is the rule. Finally, the most important driver, in addition to household size and family number in college, is family income from the previous year. Remember, I said if you're going to be doing your FAFSA in October, it's going to be based on the last full year of taxable income, and that was 2019. It is basically income of the parent or parents. It is student income, although sometimes obviously students haven't earned anything because they've been in high school and they didn't work. That's okay. And the income earned from work is almost always what's going to be counted. It expects that if you are required to file taxes based on the IRS law, that you did file taxes. And it's also going to look at certain forms of untaxed income, but it's important to note that government benefits never count. So if your parents or your family are existing on Social Security benefits, Social Security disability, Section 8 housing, SNAP benefits, food stamps, any type of government assistance at the state or federal level does not count as income, because the federal government doesn't want you to report government benefits as a form of income to get another government benefit. So as you might imagine, if your family didn't work in 2019 and they existed on government benefits, it is possible that your FAFSA will be filled with zeros. It's acceptable to turn in that kind of document. And what is the college going to ask you? They might say, well, how did you survive? And you can clearly tell them, I had a whole bunch of sources of income I'm not expected to report. And they say, oh, okay, thank you. And they move on. So it's not a heavy audit that you have to go through. And then finally, the assets of the parent and the student are sometimes considered. In some low income cases, the assets don't matter, because we figure if you made $12,000 last year, you probably don't have a lot of assets. But if you are asked to report them, you do not have to report the home you live in, whether it's a mansion or just a tiny little house like I have. So you don't report your primary residence, but you must report any extra property that your family owns, trust funds, cash saving checking accounts. But things that don't count include a small business. For instance, my family might own a restaurant that employs fewer than 100 people. And although I could sell that restaurant, it does not count as an asset simply because it is a small family-owned business. And then really for older people like myself, not counting my 401k is extraordinarily important. The only time it counts is when I take distributions from it each year. And so that is income for me. But while it sits out there waiting for you to retire, that 401k or pension fund does not count as an asset. And I'm going to stop right here because I remember I had a lot of questions on Wednesday. If you have questions about why things are asked on the form, this is why, please ask them now.
So it does. Oh, there's one question from Kiana. Is there an option? If your parents are separated and you live in two different houses?
Oh, excellent question. That was from Kiana?
Kiana, yes.
Yeah. If your parents are separated or divorced, your natural parents, then you report only on the parent you lived with the most in the last 12 months. Even if that's the poorer parent, the absolute thing is the parent you lived with most in the last 12 months. If you can't differentiate of who you lived with the most, then it asks you to claim the parent or have them claim you who gave you the most financial support. So the typical answer is who you lived with in the most in the last 12 months, no matter how much or how little they made. If the parent you lived with most in the last 12 months has remarried, even if they remarried yesterday and you have a new step parent, that step parent's 2019 income will have to be reported on the FAFSA you fill out in October of 2020. This is one of the more complicated parts about FAFSA completion, so I won't go into a lot more details about that today. Just realize it's natural parent. If natural parent has legally remarried, then the step parent enters into that whether they love us or not, okay? And finally, if your parents are unmarried but living together, that means natural parents, you still report on both of them. If your natural parent has a live-in partner and is not legally married, that person does not count. I just gave you about 3 hours of financial aid lessons in 3 minutes. Questions?
That was fantastic. Kiana says thank you.
You're welcome. And come see us if you have any doubt. We're happy to help. Okay, I think we can move on. Oh, we have another question?
No, that's it.
Okay, we can move on then. Okay, what happens when you fill out this form? Besides you spent hours or minutes with us doing it. I can do one in 5 minutes, by the way. If you bring me the right stuff, I can guide you through it. We won't complete it for you, but we will certainly help you do it accurately and honestly. The FAFSA results in a behind-the-scenes calculation that barely anyone understands. It's like a foreign language, but the FAFSA results in an expected family contribution, or EFC. This is what I call the magic number. So after you fill out that FAFSA, no matter how much you make, it's going to give you an expected family contribution. The lower the EFC, the more financial aid you're going to get. So the reason I believe that that $40,000 or less figure is out there is a lot of families who make less than $40,000 have a zero EFC, meaning they get the maximum of everything there is to offer. On the other hand, I have families who make closer to 100,000 that maybe they don't have a zero EFC, but they have a 4,000 EFC. And that still qualifies them for some financial aid. Maybe not as much, but they're going to get something. Again, the EFC is a theoretical number that says, based on the fact that Diana's family makes this much money and has this much in assets and this many people in the household, her EFC is X. And again, the lower, the better. The only time in your life when a zero is going to be a good number, probably, unless, oh, I can't think of many times a zero is a terrific number, but in this case it is. It does not mean that you have to write a check to the school for your family contribution. It simply means that when financial aid is going to be considered, the lower number is better. So that's what the EFC means. You will get an expected family contribution the minute you hit submit on the form. And so you will immediately have some basic information about your eligibility. And then the school that's listed on your FAFSA or the schools on your FAFSA will also get your FAFSA results. And they will turn that EFC into a determination of your aid amount, how much you'll get from each program, that you're eligible for. So you'll get this much in grants or this much in loans and this much in work study. But the minute you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to know pretty well how you stand among other students. That helps you to plan, because if you have a very high EFC, let's say you're Bill Gates and your AFC is 300,000, you go, I don't qualify for any aid. I guess my daughter's going to have to go to the community college. Well, at least he knows that, right? Or if my EFC is 0, I know that the world is open to me. And so I can look at a lot of colleges because they're probably going to give me a lot of money. What schools should you put on your FAFSA? Anyone you're interested in attending, because chances are in October of 2020, you are not going to know exactly where you're going to school. You haven't even been admitted yet. But anything you're interested in, you should put on the FAFSA. You can do 10 at a time. If you have 30 schools you're interested in, you do 10 at a time, then 10 more, and 10 after that as FAFSA updates. I do recommend at least putting a couple schools on your FAFSA, but if you don't decide on one until in January, you can always add it then. So it's not a one and done type of thing. Keep in mind, if you put the schools on your FAFSA, that does not mean you applied for admission there. That is a separate process. So don't say, I know I did everything. I completed my FAFSA and I put ASU on it. If you never apply to ASU, it is likely they will never give you a financial aid award, because everybody puts ASU on their FAFSAs, but not everybody plans to go to school there, right? And so it's important to know that you must apply and you must show serious intent to enroll before they're going to bother sending you a financial aid offer. And then finally, it's important to know what goes into your financial aid offer. You can get money for tuition, you can get money for books, fees, room and board, whether you're living on campus, off campus, or even at home with your parents. It still costs money to go to school, no matter where you're living, you still have to live somewhere. And so they're going to give you extra funding beyond tuition and fees. For instance, Arizona State University, we use them as an example because they're on every street corner in Phoenix. If you use them as an example, their cost of attendance for 2020-21 is $30,000 plus. But that is not their tuition and fees. That's approximately 3 times their tuition, because all these other things are added into the cost of going to school there. And we will talk very briefly at the end of this presentation how you can make the most of the money that they offer to you. And then finally, aid awards when they are offered. Most of the time, you're not going to hear from the schools until the spring, even though you applied in the fall. And you're like, why did I apply so early? They want you to be in line when they start awarding financial aid in the spring. So for instance, the FAFSA opens on October 1st, 2020. You don't have to do it on October 1st, although it seems like everybody wants to. Last year, we had 250 students at the depot who wanted to apply on October 1st. But we advise you just complete your process early. For instance, looking at our 3 state universities, NAU has a priority deadline of November 15th this past year. ASU had a priority deadline of January 15th, and U of A had a priority deadline of March 1st, I believe. And why do you want to meet those deadlines? Not because the federal money is going to go away, but because if the school has money they're going to offer you based on your federal eligibility, you want to be first in line for that before it runs out. Federal money is not going to run out. Institutional money could. Your grants are always going to be automatic, and they don't have to be accepted, because why would you not take a grant that didn't have to be repaid? However, in almost every case, you're going to be offered student loans, but you don't have to take them in whole or in part. So you can decline the loans and accept the grants. It's important to know that you can't just mysteriously get a loan without actively applying for it. So if you've ever had anyone tell you, I got a loan I didn't know anything about, that's simply not true, unless the school was doing something criminal, and very few of them do. So loans, again, you're going to have to take an active role to apply for. And work study, if you are offered a work study funds in your financial aid award, you still have to go find a job. You have to apply for it, get hired, fill out the employee paperwork, just like you were an employee of the school. And you're paid bi-weekly or weekly as if you were an employee of the school. But what if you don't want to work and you see that award on your financial aid offer of $2,000 and you go, I'm not working. I can't work and study at the same time. You don't have to accept a work study job. It's not a guarantee or an obligation. But if you decline the work study award on your financial aid offer, it is very unlikely that the school will replace it with grant money. They will simply say, if you need money and you don't want to work, go take out a loan. It's kind of that simple. Questions about what happens after you do the FAFSA?
So far, there are no questions.
Okay. I think it's because it's Saturday. We're all recovering from Friday, huh?
Apparently.
You can move on, Chris. What also happens after the FAFSA? There is a process that students often get caught in, and it can be a very time-consuming process called verification. The federal government randomly selects about 30% of the people who apply for this process. It simply means that for every school you're serious about attending, they will be required by the federal government to ask you for information on your finances that you put on the FAFSA. In other words, your tax return or a tax transcript from the IRS, simply so they can validate that you didn't make a mistake, or more importantly, try to cheat. And I think mostly it's people making mistakes. I don't know very many people who try to cheat this form because eventually it catches up with them. They will also ask you to verify the family size you put. That doesn't mean they come to your house and count heads. That means that you fill out a form where you list everybody you put on the FAFSA, their names, their ages, and if they're in school, what school they're attending. That's all it is. Why is it so hard? Because sometimes the way that schools ask for the information is a little bit complicated. Sometimes it's hard to get hold of that income information, although if you used it on your FAFSA, I hope you have it in your hand. But if you need help with the verification process, that's a lot of what we do in the summer months before school starts in the fall. And if you do not pass verification, you never get any of that financial aid money that was promised to you. So it's very important to know. How do you know what you have to do? How do you know if the college has everything they need for admissions or for financial aid or to pay your bill? The only way you're ever going to know those things is if you pay close attention to the to-do items that the college tells you about. And colleges tell you a lot of different ways. They write you letters, they send you emails, they put information in your student portal, which most schools in the 21st century actually do have online school portals where your grades, your classes, your account balance, your financial aid, everything about you is recorded on that portal, and you can see it anytime you want to, even at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you have a big to-do list on the right-hand side of your portal, that means that you're either not going to be registered for classes or get any money for them until you clear those up. So it's very important to do that. Do you have to look at the thing every hour? No. As you get closer to school, though, you want to check it once or twice a week so you don't miss anything. I have, as an example, a student going to Maricopa Community Colleges who did not turn in their student ID or their state ID, saying that they were actually a resident of Arizona and Maricopa County. Therefore, they were charged out-of-state tuition until they turned in that document. And they freaked out when they saw out-of-state tuition. But the reason why is they had a to-do item that they had not addressed. The minute they addressed that to-do item, the tuition suddenly went down by $200 and some per credit hour. Big difference. They worried over nothing. Complete award offers are typically made in the spring. before the fall semester. So often you're going to have to compare financial aid offers. And we'll use a couple of really high level examples. Did Harvard offer you more money than Yale? Or did Yale offer you more money than Harvard? Or did ASU offer you more money than Harvard and Yale combined? It's possible that any of those things could have happened. And if that's the case, you're going to want to look at those aid offers. We can help you analyze them to decide exactly what the best deal is. Is the best deal always what you should take? Absolutely not. You have to weigh the cost against your interest in the school and what it can offer you. And then finally, when does the money actually come? This is the most complicated question that students ask. So I qualified for $50,000 from Harvard. When am I going to see it? You're going to get that $50,000 near to the start of the semester, usually about 10 days beforehand. And the money from the federal government or from any source will go first to the school to pay their direct charges, like are you being charged for tuition, room board, books at the bookstore, that sort of thing. And then any money that's left over can be refunded to you for living expenses like transportation, living at home or living in an apartment if you're not living off campus. But that money doesn't come until late summer for the next semester. And now I'm going to turn, well, before I do, I just covered a very hefty lesson on federal financial aid, which should make all of you much smarter when you're talking to financial aid offices because they're not speaking Greek to you anymore. But are there any final questions before Bianca begins on the more fascinating topics of institutional and scholarship aid? Chris, anything?
Thank you, Dan. There don't seem to be any questions.
That doesn't mean that you can't think of them later and ask. But right now, I'm going to turn this over to my wonderful coworker, Bianca, who's going to talk to you about institutional aid and external scholarships. Bianca, hit it.
Thank you so much, Dykes. There are a couple things with previous slides. Am I getting feedback or is this good? Okay.
Good. For some reason in the beginning, when people first talk after unmuting themselves, it makes that noise. So okay. You're good now.
Thank you. So a couple things that Diana mentioned in her previous slides are going to be incorporated in the ones coming up. So of course, if you have questions, please just put them in the chat. So we'll start off with institutional aid. Institutional aid is assistance, financial assistance that you get from university or college of your choice. So when you're moving forward, it includes any award from school funds upon admission or when financial aid is offered. So those award letters that you'll be receiving from your in-state universities or out-state universities within the spring semester of your senior year of high school when you apply to college, that's what you're going to be seeing. So much institutional aid is renewable for subsequent years. But you must meet the renewal criteria to be sure. To be sure to know if you meet it. So essentially, when you get your award letter from your institutional aid, which is either through mail or it pops up on your student portal, you're going to have these scholarships presented to you. And then some are going to be offered through the college where they have criteria. Essentially, do you have to maintain a 3.0 GPA? Do you have to be a full-time student achieving 15 credits rather than 12 credits a semester? So these are things as a student you need to be proactive with in making sure that your deadlines for renewing your FAFSA meet the criteria for the scholarships that you have as well. So just like in the bottom, it just may include minimum GPA, minimum required to each semester, and counseling and mentoring services. So those are a couple things that a student needs to have in the back of their mind when they're going for institutional aid. Institutional aid is also not limited to the awards that your school offers you. For any university or college that a student is attending, there is a scholarship portal available for them once they get their student ID and once they're granted the ability to attend. So these can be scholarships ranging for study abroad, they can be ranging for a specific talent, whether you're first generation. So these are things that students then have to move forward and apply for. So those are the things we're going to identify today. When considering the following is identifying the main components of scholarship applications, identify the time and length and process for applying to a scholarship and the benefits that come with that, and then identifying reliable databases for scholarship searches. And then before we move forward, do we have any questions, Chris?
Yes, we have one from Amira who asks, what if you're in an undergraduate program and you have exhausted all financial aid? What resources are available at that point? Are you able to request additional financial aid?
So this is in regards to institution. I think Diana will be really good in answering if it's regards to your FAFSA, if you exhausted your FAFSA. But I know for financial aid in regards to scholarships through the institution, you can apply as many times as you're able to. So those scholarships are really just at the disposal of the student, So Diana?
And Bianca, yeah, adding on, at least on the institutional aid, I believe that there are limits. For instance, if you're an Obama scholar at ASU or you receive one of the merit scholarships at the other institutions, they're going to give you a set number of years that you can use it. You're expected to stay full-time and succeed. So for a 4-year program, they'll offer you 4 years of scholarships. Mm-hmm. That differs from federal financial aid, which generally offers you 1.5 times the normal length of the program to get money. So as an example, if you are in a bachelor's degree program designed to begin and to take 4 years to complete, the federal programs will allow you 6 years to complete it. And if you attend only part-time, they will prorate your aid accordingly. Full-time is usually 4 classes of 3 credits each or a minimum of 12 credits. Undergraduate students, you would be surprised at the number who actually take that 6 years and then run out of eligibility either for grants or for student loans. And when that happens, there's very little from the federal aid perspective that a student can do. The federal aid is gone, but that does not mean that the things you're talking about, Bianca, can't still be sought, like a scholarship or some type of aid that doesn't have a time limit to it. But federal aid definitely has a time limit. If you're in an associate's degree program of 2 years, you have 3 years to complete it. Again, 1.5 times. And Bianca, you're an Obama scholar at ASU. You're expected to complete in 4 years, right?
Correct. It's part of my criteria for the Obama scholarship is you in that timeline. So a lot of times the scholarships that the institution offers you, their criteria puts you in a position where you are made to finish in 4 years. Answer some questions.
Great. And we have one more question that might go for Diana. I'm sorry, were you still answering?
That was
okay.
Off to you, Chris.
All right, one more question from Martin. He asks, can you receive aid for the summer? If so, what's the minimum credits to take?
Excellent question. You guys are planning. I love this. You can receive federal financial aid for the summer, even if you've received a full grant for the other 2 semesters or a full, usually it's a grant. What's the minimum number of credits? It depends on the school. Every school defines the minimum number of credits per semester, including summer session, that is considered half-time and full-time. So half-time in spring might be 6 credits, full-time 12 credits. In the summer, half-time is 3 credits, full-time is 6 credits because it's shorter. So the answer to that is the answer to all financial aid questions. It depends, but it is possible to get federal aid for 3 terms during the school year, fall, spring, and summer.
Great, thank you. That is all the questions for now.
I think a student asked, what's the difference between FAFSA form and the CSS profile? What data points will be different?
You want me to take it?
Yeah, please get ahead, because I know a couple things about the CSS profile, but I feel like you're better to distinguishing the differences.
Well, because you're an ASU student, the good news is you didn't have to do one. So most of your state institutions, either in Arizona or out of Arizona, do not require the CSS financial aid profile. But if you are completing admissions for a school on the common application, again, we can have a discussion about that offline for those of you who are going to do it. That's the application for admission to some of your more elite private universities. I shouldn't have said more elite, because I think ASU is pretty elite, but the ones that think they're more elite, like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Brown, Princeton, a bunch of schools in California who love to think that they're very elite. All of those schools require the CSS financial aid profile and the FAFSA, both of them. So you can't do one without the other. The FAFSA asks you much more basic questions than the CSS profile does. The CSS profile wants to know more about your family circumstance, like what your home is worth that you live in. Remember, the FAFSA doesn't ask that. They will ask for your untaxed income that sometimes FAFSA doesn't ask for. And then not trying to take away your federal eligibility. They can't do that. That's determined by the FAFSA. But the CSS profile allows those institutions to give money from their own coffers to students who are, in their minds, needier than others. So if they were to look at my CSS profile and Bill Gates's CSS profile, they would literally know I need more money than he does, even though our FAFSAs might look similar. Oh yeah, right. I think you're all getting the point. The CSS profile is going to ask you for more detailed data. We do help with the common application and the CSS profile at the depot. I do most of that work, although there are more than just me capable of doing it. I just happen to like this two forms, so I do a lot of them for students. Keep in mind, if you need to do the CSS profile, you need to do it. So check very carefully if your school requires it. I can assure you that our state universities do not, but I can also assure you that the ones I mentioned, like Harvard, Yale, and Brown, do require it. Take it away, Bianca.
Okay, we can move on to the next. Feedback. Awesome. Okay, institution aid and Arizona example. So really any institution, for the sake of the time, we're gonna use AZ as a base. But so ASU, the Obama scholarship, like Diana mentioned, so a lot of these are issued scholarships or grants that the university offers you based on your FAFSA, based on all the information that you submitted before January, essentially, or some even require before December. So these are things, if students research these grants or institutional aid examples. If you are eligible, you can do things as of right now moving forward to prepare yourself that you can have the ability to be awarded these scholarships and awards. So I know the ASU Obama Scholarship, first generation, based a lot on the family's income and then also on the students' grades. So those are things a student should be keeping in the back of their mind and just seeing the prerequisites. So something to do proactive with this information is essentially look into the university or institution that you're planning to attend and see one of the most renowned scholarships they're known for and offering to students as well. And then see what are the prerequisites for that. Essentially, if you are planning to go to NAU and the Lumberjack Scholarship, and for that specific scholarship, you can have a C on your report card. But if you take a summer class and up that C to a B, you are now eligible for the NAU Lumberjack Scholarship. And these are just situations that have occurred in the past that I've come to learn. So it really depends on the student and how much they're investing as of right now to see which awards they'll be eligible for. and to be prepared for them, because these are for graduating high school students, not really transfer students. These are awarded within that first packages. So really keep an eye out as a student when you're deciding whether to lean one way or another, and to see the resources available for you. Awesome. So external scholarship in 3 categories. So the reason we have this broken down into 3 sections is because on our scholarship website page, the specific section offers something called the scholarship matrix, which is a form that U.S. students are eligible to organize your scholarships in the sense of seeing which ones you're going to apply for, which ones you'll be eligible in the future, and just have everything categorized and organized, which is one of the biggest tips when you're applying for scholarships, is having everything organized, whether it's your applications, your academic resume, your personal statements, and also your academics. And we'll get a little bit more into that later in the later slides. But for the first one is random selection or simple criteria, entering into a drawing, taking a simple quiz and to get the scholarship entry. So don't mix this with the sweepstakes. You shouldn't be putting down any credit card or debit card information for the random selection or simple criteria. It can be a simple question, whether they're asking you about cyberbullying, or submit this 150-word response about drunk drivers. So essentially, you're not putting down as much information, and these are the ones you should really be cautious about in the sense of putting down your social security. Not that it's uncommon, it's just those come into more lengthy scholarships that do require steps to the application. The second one is based on talents, abilities, academic and personal profiles, community service, interests, and backgrounds. So this is the one you will see a lot of, whether you're 6'2", whether you made a dress out of duct tape. So those are things to keep in your mind when you're moving forward in this, like next semester and year. Look out to those scholarships that do require, abilities or community service, whether you serve 20 hours and you need 25, just to get ahead of the game. And then the last category that we see here is essay required. I remember Diana speaking a little bit about these points and the importance about an essay. Do not be afraid of, putting your work and your writing out there, especially because I believe everyone has a story to be told. It's just the way you present yourself can be enhanced through various outlets. So College Depot is one of them. Diana is somebody that does review scholarship essays for students, not your college essays, but your scholarship essay for students, in the sense of giving them the ability and empowering them to show that you can write something very compelling. Also, category 3 will include parts of category 2. So at this moment, do we have any questions?
Yes. Faith, I'm sorry, there's 2 questions.
Yes.
Erica asks, with the lumberjack scholarship, would I still need to fill out the FAFSA?
Yes. So essentially, when you get awarded to these institutions, whether you're applying to any of them, you're required to fill out a FAFSA in my perspective. But Diana, if you do have input, please.
Well, these are kind of a mixture. Lumberjack is generally awarded based totally on merit, I believe. Chris, Bianca, if you know this to be different, but last year I think it was just based on merit.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't have less than a B in any of your courses, right, Bianca?
Yes.
And they require you take the ACT or SAT, and they assign the Lumberjack Scholarship, which is their top tuition award based on merit, and they give that to you upon admissions. However, the Lumberjack Scholarship in and of itself is not enough to pay costs at NAU unless you're going to commute 140 miles a day. And so therefore, it behooves you to do the FAFSA. They're not attaching eligibility for that scholarship to the FAFSA, but you're going to need it. When we look at the scholarships at U of A, like the Assurance Scholarship, the Pell Pledge Scholarship, and the Obama Scholarship at ASU, those are a combination of merit and FAFSA. And so you do have to do both in order to get them. So you really need to pay attention to what the requirements are. if they're full merit, or if they want you to also do the FAFSA. And my recommendation is always do the FAFSA. It can't hurt you.
Thank you, Diana. And what was the second question, Chris?
And the second question comes from Faith, who says, where can you find scholarships to apply to?
We're about to get into that, so stay for the ride. So essay tips for category 3 scholarships. So here are your story. You're telling a story about yourself. Essentially, you're striving to put your audience in an environment like if they're watching a movie, but through words, which, believe it or not, are very, very, very impactful. So you have to be specific in the sense that you're answering the prompt, the question they ask you, whether it's choose a moment in time where you experienced pain, a happy memory, or when you learned something, when you overcame a struggle. So you do have the ability to get creative and, go a little bit outside of the lines, but remember to stay in the main focus of what the scholarship is intended for, and that's answering the prompt. Use detailed anecdotes and example stories, and then write several drafts and have others read it. And proofread, proofread, proofread. I can't stress that enough, simply because when you're writing and you're so invested in your writing, you see the idea already in your head. And at times that does not transmit directly or clearly on the paper as you would believe it to be. So that's why you have other people's perspectives and external resources just coming in and seeing and pointing out different strengths of your essay and things that you don't necessarily need because it draws away from the attention that you're trying to bring to. So these are things, as a writer, there are vulnerabilities, getting that constructive criticism, but essentially is it's only to better yourself. So these are things moving forward for essay tips, very straightforward and specific, just how to improve your writing. And by improving your writing, you can bring other people on board just to help you point out those tweaks and turns that you need with your writing. And can move on to the next one. Essay blunders, so procrastination and not following directions. Controversial topics can be risky. So essentially, I remember Diana speaking on this, is unless they ask you directly about a controversial issue, there are so many other things to write about. So you don't necessarily need to focus on that viewpoint. If for any reason you do have a compelling argument and you believe that you can deliver something that is controversial but does have a very neutral base and kind of a positive perspective, then by all means, that's where you reach out to people at the College Depot or other people to read your work, just to make sure that you're staying within a very respectful territory. Relying on a thesaurus is, we always got to be authentic. Don't sound like everyone else. Don't try to speak like word vomit, because through that, they can be so focused on trying to figure out these words and how they combine, and you just kind of lose your story. You lose that storyline. So, and lying and embellishing the truth is never really encouraged, essentially, because you are presenting your authenticity, and pretending to be perfect. That's one thing that goes with embellishing the truth and like listing your accomplishments. So I feel like these 3 points really go together in the sense of, I know a lot of teachers do say, oh, this is where you have to, essentially like put yourself out there and list all your great accomplishments, and all to the persons that do have your accomplishments, but in the sense is bring them to the table in a way that you demonstrate how you got those accomplishments. Thinking back 5 years now, 5 years ago versus 5 years in the future, you're going to change dramatically just in 3 months. So if you didn't have a certain talent and ability that you just acquired, talk about how you got to that accomplishment and what that accomplishment brought of, becoming a leader, being able to speak up for yourself, standing up for yourself, or being able to advocate for yourself, and just talk about the environment that you were in. These things are life moments that you can really capture through your writing, with not essentially just, stating everything, you're demonstrating. So, things to stay away from. So that's the couple points I wanted to bring out in this slide. And then letters of recommendation. So these are essentially, you ask for a letter of recommendation within 1 month before you need it. And by when you need it, you don't really want to put yourself in a position that you're to the exact deadline. Put a deadline before the actual deadline of the application, just simply giving a little wiggle room for life to be life. So you provide your recommender with a list of accomplishments and involvement to enhance their personal statement, essentially. So this can be your academic resume or a list of achievements that you've had, just essentially so they know you in the sense of the personality, but they're able to incorporate other things in there just to make you seem amazing. So I would recommend, if you are going to get a letter of recommendation, to use a format. This is something we use at College Depot. Do it through an email, something that has kind of a timestamp, so you can reach out to them again within 2 to 3 weeks or a week ahead in advance and say, hi, I sent this email. Can you please get back to me within the next couple days, or when are you feel like we can meet up? Also, before you ask for a letter recommendation through an email format, talk to the person ahead of time in person and tell them about why you want to apply to the scholarship. Why are you interested in the scholarship? Why are you a perfect candidate for it? So when they're writing this letter of recommendation, they can include those things as well. So provide them with that information, provide them with the website of the application for the scholarship, give them all the resources so they don't have to do the searching on their own. They can just simply go in and write a great letter of recommendation for you. So allow time for a follow-up and always thank your recommender in the end, especially if you got the scholarship. It's always really great to just send a thank you, especially for their time, because they're very, very busy people. These can be your coaches, this can be your teacher, an administrator, a volunteer coordinator. We usually tell students to stray away from family members unless they play a very pivotal role. So we would ask students to reach out to different resources, whether they're their church. So there's a variety of things if a student just kind of sits down and sees everyone around them, essentially. And scholarship red flags. There's no such thing as a guaranteed result. So no one can assure you that you will receive a scholarship. Sometimes it is a game of chance and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you really have a really good chance and you just simply don't get the scholarship because there was another candidate. So if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. That goes back to the category 1 scholarships that we were talking about in the sense of, drawings versus sweepstakes. So you never pay for a scholarship search, or you never put down your payment detail informations. So that goes into like being careful of providing your social security number. Essentially, they're not there when you first apply. So we really tell students to watch out for these because we don't want you to be investing your time into a scam when knowing the scholarship process itself is already lengthy. So those are just a couple things we needed to touch base on. And general scholarship tips. So organize and reach. So essentially, when we look at this for the scholarships, we can view it in three categories, or kind of a 3-step strategy, which are national scholarships, state and local scholarship, and then college and university scholarships. So we already covered a little bit about the college and university scholarships in the sense of institutional aid offered through, your initial application and then your awarded letter, and then the access you have as a student through your student portal. State and local scholarships, we're looking at kind of foundations available for students, Chicanos por la Causa, you have the Arizona Community Foundation. So these are organizations that you can look into. The College Depot also has a scholarship portal available for you on our website. So these are state and local. So we're moving up in the circle. And then the really, really top one is national scholarships. So these are the really, really big scholarships out there for students that are offered through the whole entire United States. So we tell students to do a mix of all three, but really prioritize where you're going to be attending. So that's college and university scholarship with dipping your hand within state and local, and then national scholarships. So when you want to prioritize which ones you're going to start off with. So that's what considering creating a scholarship email. This is really, really important, especially if you have social media accounts that you already have your email that you use for either a job or you're planning to use for a scholarship. Just make sure you create a separate email so you don't have to not associate, but you're in a professional platform. You're not going to react or talk the same you are on your social media sites the way if you were in a work environment. So that's why we ask students, or we just encourage students to create a professional email. And then apply for scholarships scholarships, even if you are reaching to meet the exact criteria. Essentially, if your GPA is just there, or if your community service hours just need a little bit more, don't feel discouraged and just apply and allow them to do the decision process. And essentially, if they do have an essay requirement, you can speak about those just met criteria that you're close to reaching through that essay and why you're still a very competitive and compelling candidate. So make your scholarship search a part-time job. This is where we move towards a lengthy process when we're identifying how much time we're going to be spending into the scholarship process. So think about it this way, and you can see it already there, but a $400 award by 10-hour search, it's equivalent to $40 per hour. Essentially, as a graduating high school senior, incoming undergraduate, this is probably the best part-time job you will ever receive. And essentially, you already have the material to receive it. You have your entire experience, whether it's on an academic resume, whether it's your recommenders, your involvement, you have that already ready to go. You just need to invest time into putting it forward in formats that will get you a scholarship or doing the application. So everything that aside, going into the last bullet point is don't be afraid to use an essay template with your best thoughts, but be careful to tailor your essay to your audience. Know who you are speaking to. If the scholarship you're applying to has a website and has candidates that won in the past, go ahead and see what they wrote, what material they put out there, what their involvement is. Essentially, because you can see a trend, you can see a theme within their candidates and what they're already looking for and what they're more prone to award. So just by doing that, you have all this resource and information available to you. You just have to, like it says, tailor your essay to your audience, know your audience to begin with, and then know yourself and what qualities you share. And then stay on topic and answer the questions asked in your essay and response. So those are just kind of some general tips in regards to how you approach the scholarship process. And what is the next slide? Here we go into the question that was asked previous about the College Depot scholarship page in regards to where do we find these scholarships. So reliable databases. So we can essentially, if you were to go onto the College Depot site, and I say this because it is literally the backbone that I know when talking about scholarships, but the link is up there, but you can always just search on Google College Depot. It'll be with the Phoenix Public Library. You get there and you'll see these boxes. These boxes is an opportunity for you to customize your search. You can either view them on monthly deadlines, which if you are a student who's looking forward and applying throughout their senior year, that's what we encourage you to do. If you're going to do monthly deadlines, always look a month or 2 months in advance and start preparing for those. So you can even start preparing right now for the ones in August and September. As of right now, our scholarship website portal isn't fully updated or renewed. We're looking forward into August having that all ready for you guys. So, but what to look for? Essentially, you can view all the scholarships. For our students that are DACA and Dreamers, there's International Eligibility tab available for you there. Various scholarship opportunities. And when you're on there as well, just below the website or the boxes, you have all the resources we talked about, the scholarship matrix, the letter of recommendation, how to boost your personal statement or how to have a personal statement ready to go, especially for those category 2 scholarships that just ask for abilities and qualities. It can just ask for a simple 150 word to 300 word essay per se, and have that submitted with your transcript. And so that's just one idea. The other side is, the category, the strategy in scholarships, where it's the state and local scholarships. There you're going to find all the foundations and links in Arizona, or the majority of them. I can't say all because it's not absolute, but it's going to get a great channel to the second tier that we were talking about when it was college, state, and then national. And then right below that, it's going to be other websites for scholarships. This one is going to have websites like QuestBridge, College Greenlight, Unigo, Moolah Spot. This is an opportunity for you to create a profile where you fill in all your information, your hobbies, your activities, your accomplishments, and then at the end, they will match you with scholarships that you're eligible for applying. So when a student says, like, where do we look for scholarships? It's like, this is a great place to start. And then just start to get familiar with the information that they require, so you can then organize yourself ahead of time and cut the hours from 10 to 5 and then maximize your reward. So it is a strategy, it is an investment, but it's something that students already have the resources there. They just have to be willing to move forward. So I think that's kind of covers College Depot scholarship page. If there's any other things my coworkers want to add, please go ahead. But that pretty much wraps my portion on this section.
Thank you, Bianca. This is Diana again. Chris, any questions for Bianca before we move forward to our last couple of slides?
No, we're very thorough, so
Yes.
No questions.
Excellent. And I hope that you all see through the excellent information that Bianca provided that this stuff is all connected. Affording college is about federal resources, about institutional resources. It's about getting external scholarships. It's about writing those essays that we talked about an hour ago. All of those things matter, but the most important thing is what I want to end with today, and that's how much it really costs to go to school for a year. This is one of the biggest sources of confusion, and you can know clearly all the types of financial aid that you can get, but if you don't really understand how it all fits together into one total cost, then you're missing a big part of the program. Actually, college can be divided very simply into two different categories. They're the fixed costs and the variable costs. One that you don't have much control over at all, and that's the fixed costs, and one in which you can exercise quite a lot more control, and that's the variable costs. First, let's talk about what's fixed. Fixed is that which is non-negotiable, tuition and fees. You can't go up to ASU and go, I don't want to pay $350 a credit hour. Will you take 200? They are going to charge you per credit hour, and that is pretty absolute. So those things don't waver a lot, other than based on the number of credits you take. There will be a per credit hour charge for part-time attendance. But many schools, like your 3 state universities here, and even the Maricopa system now, will charge you a flat rate tuition for full-time up to a maximum number of credits. What does that mean? It simply means that full-time is usually defined as 12 semester hours. So you're taking 12 hours in fall semester, 12 hours in the spring, and you may choose to go in the summer, as one of you asked about. But the tuition is the same if you take 12 credit hours in the fall as if you take 15 credit hours in the fall. There is a difference between one extra class, but you're not paying for it because you pay the same rate for 12 credits as you do 15. For that reason, I strongly suggest you take more than the minimum full-time credit hours per semester if you can academically and socially, work-wise, et cetera, handle it, because you will guarantee you'll get out more quickly, and you will also guarantee that you pay the least amount in tuition. So it really is painful for me to watch a student that plods along at 12 credit hours a semester, because I can guarantee it's going to take them extra time to finish, and ultimately it's going to cost 1 or 2 extra semesters worth of tuition. The same thing can go for fees in some ways. I used to laugh and say my children were charged a fee for just walking on the grass across campus. And fees do tend to add up very quickly and look like that. So you may have a fee for a program like an honors college, or a special program that costs more within the university or college. You may have an extra fee per course. For instance, if you're in an art course or a film course, there are bound to be charges for supplies. You may have to absorb those yourself, or you may be charged a fee for them. Cosmetology program, for instance, relies on the student having access to a full cosmetology kit of everything you need to treat hair and nails and skin. So that is an extra charge. And sometimes these fees add up and you don't count them when you initially think about college But then you see that $750 surcharge and you say, well, now I've got to come up with an extra $750. So be sure you know what those fixed costs are. The variable costs, on the other hand, are the things that are well within your control in many cases. Room and board is one of them. Are you going to live on campus? Can you commute? If you live on campus, do you have to live in the most expensive dorm? Or can you perhaps pick a lesser dorm? Everyone wants to live in the best of everything, but there's a charge attached to that. Do you have to have the most expensive meal plan? I can pretty much assure you from personal experience, you do not, because I thought my children would starve to death if they didn't have the biggest meal plan. And then by the end of the semester, they still had lots of money left over. So I learned a valuable lesson. You don't always have to eat the most. There are far more reasonable meal plans. You might live off campus in a house with 5 other people. That decreases your charges. You might eat more in the dorm or at home. Those are very variable in cost. Books and supplies are another area where you can save a lot of money. If you can, stay away from the college bookstore, because when you go in, they sell everything, and it will be a great shopping experience, but you will spend a lot of money there. So if you can buy books used, buy books off campus, buy books from Amazon, rent books instead of buying them, because if you don't want that English 101 book forever and a day, rent it for a semester, send it back. These are very efficient processes, and they will save you hundreds of dollars a semester. Transportation's another area where students are fairly absolute about what they want, but do you have to have it? Do you have to have a car on campus? If there's campus transportation to get you from one building to the other, and there almost always is, can you take public transportation in and university transportation around the campus? Can you park off campus and take university transportation in? Can you use public transportation if you're a commuter? Those things are very important, because parking that car on campus a mile from where your dorm is still going to cost you $500 a year, or maybe even more. So be sure that you make smart transportation choices. And finally, personal expenses. Do you have to have everything purchased for your dorm room from Nordstrom's, or can some of it come from a thrift store? Or can some of your personal hygienic supplies like shampoo, toothpaste, washing detergent, can those things come from a dollar store instead of Safeway? Even though Safeway or the convenience store may be more convenient, they're likely to be pricier. So you can cut off a lot of those expenses by doing some of these little things on variable costs. And there's a word for the wise here from me on how to cut costs. I can tell you right now, we talked about it before, ASU has an over 30,000 here, but that includes everything. That includes tuition and fees for full-time. That includes an average room and board cost, transportation costs, books and supplies, and personal expenses. So ASU is going to try to find you $30,000 in financial aid for the year. The likelihood is a lot of that $30,000 is going to come in the form of student loans. You can reduce or eliminate those student loans from your budget and from your financial aid award by reducing your variable costs. And I told you on the last slide how to do that. Adjust your housing arrangements and your meal costs. I can save an ASU student an average of $3,000 or $4,000 just by adjusting those things sometimes. If there's a fee to park on campus, and there almost always is at four-year institutions, at commuter campuses like community colleges, they let you park for free, because how else are you going to get there if you don't have a car or take public transportation? You can consider alternatives at all times, though, because the transportation allowance is going to be $2,000 or $3,000. Do you really need that much money? And do that thrifty shopping. I know it's terrible to think of clipping virtual coupons like your parents did, but the fact is thrifty shopping to reduce your personal expenses, they're going to give you an allowance of $3,000 or $4,000 for just that personal stuff per year. Do you really need $4,000 worth of toothpaste and shampoo? You can probably cut that as well. Save that money for your computer and your internet connection at home and the things that really, really matter to you and are really going to make a difference in your academics. And with that, we are near the end of our presentation today. Remember that Bianca and I told you that a lot of what we do at the Depot is help you apply for financial aid, whether it's the FAFSA or the CSS profile or completing verification or looking for scholarships. We do all of these services for free. Our information is here, including our home, which is not where I am right now. I'm in my own home, but the College Depot home is at the Burton Bar Library. And with God willing, we will be back there sometime in the fall when we straighten out all of our infectious disease problems in America. I have hope. We will hopefully see you all in the fall, but until then, we are operating just as we always have. We're just doing it virtually. Consider us a takeout, right? Reach out to us, ask questions. We are here for you, fully staffed right now. And Chris, I'm going to turn it back to you to say any final words you have or ask any final questions that have arisen.
Thank you, Diana. It looks like actually we have one question, again from Martin. Do universities expect you to live on campus for your first year?
Ooh, good question. Bianca, does ASU require it? No.
Oh, they don't require it, but there's certain scholarships that do give you the opportunity to live on campus and cover those costs. So it's not more of a cost factor. It's more of a you designing your first year experience in the college.
I strongly recommend living on campus if you can, although I do not believe any of our 3 state universities absolutely require it. And in fact, U of A has such a housing issue. Sometimes they're happy if you live on campus the first year and then move away because they can turn over that housing to a new freshman. But the fact is, as Bianca said, many scholarships like the Obama Scholars Program will find you financing that will help you afford most, if not all, of the on-campus costs. So it's great. But you can be a commuter student if you live close enough. You can get an apartment. There are many of your out-of-state private smaller colleges are going to say, absolutely, we want you on campus for the on-campus experience of helping our freshmen get through their first year, but it really does vary.
Okay, and one more question from Alexis. ASU Honors College requires you to live on campus the first 2 years. So it's not a question, a comment. So she's saying the ASU Honors College does require you to live on campus.
Yes, that is true. Barrett does require that. So thank you for that, Alexis, because it is a bit different. And the reason for that is Barrett has built a very strong community of like-minded scholars in their honors program. And there is so much to be gained from that community that they really feel you miss a lot if you do not live on campus and in a Barrett dormitory, which quite honestly can be a little pricier than the normal dorms, but Barrett dormitories are fabulous. So they're worth the extra money sometimes.
Yeah, and in the dorms. So if there aren't any other questions, again, I really want to thank everybody for participating this afternoon. We genuinely appreciate you and also appreciate your feedback So if you can, I posted a link in the chat. If you could take just 1 or 2 minutes to click that link, fill out a survey. We're always aim to be the best we can possibly be for you, our parents, our students, and our community members. So your survey, filling out that survey, the input you provide really helps us to know how we did and how we can continue to get better as we progress. So please take a minute to fill that out. And before I move any further, it looks like we have one more question from Martin. He says, if you receive and spend the full amount of your aid, around $6K, on the fall and spring, can you receive more aid for the summer?
Okay, when you say around 6K, Martine, I assume you're talking about Pell Grant, which the maximum Pell Grant is $6,345. That pays all the tuition and more besides at community college. It pays about half the tuition or a little more than half at your state universities. There is a provision where you can get more money in the summer, even though the annual maximum Pell Grant is a little over $6,000. But that is a fairly complex discussion you need to have with your school because they need to calculate how much extra you can get beyond the maximum you've already received for fall and summer. But in a simple answer to your question, yes, it can happen. And the reason is the federal government is trying to encourage you. If you're a real go-getter and you want to go 3 terms a year, year-round, they feel like they should reward you for that with some extra money.
Absolutely. And we can also post the link and you can see it right there to meet with one of our advisors. Of course, all of our services as a program of Phoenix Public Library are completely and entirely free. We are not trying to hustle you at any point, but you can request an appointment to meet one-on-one with an advisor. I guess now it's probably too late if you're trying to take summer classes, but going forward, I know that we've helped quite a few students this summer get that additional Pell so that they can take some classes. And in the midst of everything, all the uncertainty, a lot of people were wanting to take some summer classes. So we helped a lot of students with that, both at ASU, universities, and the community colleges. So I think everybody kind of knows, but just real quick, College Depot is a free full-service college access center. What you're experiencing right now is our virtual summer sessions. This is the first year we've done them virtually. In the past, they've always been in person. We have a beautiful center located at Burton Bar Central Library on Central Avenue and McDowell. We're on the 2nd floor. Of course, right now and for the foreseeable future, we are virtual. The number one service we provide is one-on-one appointments with our amazing and professional and expert college access advisors, of which Diana, Bianca, and Megan are all members of that elite group. So if you want to request, you can request a one-on-one appointment for anything that we discussed today and anything else that we didn't discuss, whether it's admissions, creating a college plan, creating something specific and individual to you. We talked about a lot of broad subjects that were general in their application, but of course there can be variances based on your individual circumstances. So you can request an appointment right there. And of course, they are virtually. We meet via video conferencing or over the phone, whatever is the best for you, and set something up. And we're pretty much at the end of our summer sessions. Still have scholarships and financial aid. That's today, so that's gone. But we do have one more session coming up next Saturday at 10 a.m. and it's test prep essentials. So if you are a senior or junior or even a freshman and sophomore and just want to get ahead on things, this is an amazing session that kind of goes into high stakes exams, including college entrance exams and college placement exams. So we don't necessarily go into the content of those different exams, but we do talk about all of the ones that are out there, why they exist, why you need to take them or why maybe you don't need to take them, and then strategies, hacks, and skills and tips that you can that can help you to prepare and take the test. So you can register right there, tiny.cc/C events. And of course, the C and the D are capital. So make sure you hit those or the link may not work. So I don't see any other questions in here, but I do want to thank everybody for participating. Do apologize, there were some audio issues with all of us. It's been pretty smooth for all of our sessions up until this one, so I guess we saved the last this week, the best for last to kind of have those issues. But thank you for bearing with us. It looks like everybody pretty much stayed on the entire time. We are here for you. Going into August, we'll be 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, varying hours throughout the week. So whatever you need or however we can support you, do not hesitate to reach out. Again, we are recording this, so we'll have that. It'll be a YouTube link. A follow-up email will come to you with the link for this video. So if there isn't anything else from our presenters, Bianca and Diana, then I hope you all have an amazing rest of your afternoon and a fantastic weekend. Stay healthy, stay safe, and
Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for attending with us today.